Welcome, welcome, and hey, hey. Hopefully, everybody is enjoying their Friday. The time on my clock says time to get to class. And I got to make sure the sound's working because last time I tried to use this headphone, I remember it wasn't sounding so good. But my other one's got to charge a little bit. Let's see. There he is. How is it, Jay? Other one's got to charge a little bit. Let's see. Sounds fine. How is it, Jay? Sounds perfectly fine to me. Hopefully, it stays that way for everybody else involved. So, happy Friday, everyone. TGIBS. Thank God it's Bible study. Or maybe thank God it's BS. That's like what that guy yesterday was saying in the chat. A bunch of ghost stories. Well, maybe that's true. Maybe it's all a bunch of ghost stories, huh? Maybe your very life that you clung on to so badly every single second of every single day was just a ghost story. Maybe. So, what's up, everyone? This is Jay Baldeo, ready to bring you some more of this wonderful book from the powerful Manly P. Hall. Today, we kind of got two options because this section 5 is rather short. It's like, I feel like it's not even 10 pages, if I remember right. Let's double check. Just over, about 13 pages. So we could just have a short stream today, or we could have a long stream today and do section 5 and section 6. Section 6 is going to be pretty good because that's got Nebuchadnezzar just dreaming it, the vision of Ezekiel, more about Melchizedek. But we could also just do a short stream today, then do that one tomorrow. But we have these couple sections in this book, not a whole lot, but a few of them that are really pretty rather short. Yeah, like same with section 7 is 10 pages. So maybe, I don't know. We'll see. We'll just get to reading. And if we feel like it's a good idea to keep going, we'll keep going. If we feel like it's not a good idea, then we'll just make it nice and short and sweet on a Friday. Maybe that's because you're all excited you got some Friday plans. You're going to do something. Who knows? No, I don't know what, but you do. And welcome in to those of you just coming in. Always great to see you all. So, yeah, I said it. This is Jay Baldell. I already said that part. If you're new and you enjoy this content, though, well, welcome. And please hit a like, share, and subscribe. Okay. Play the music. And we'll pull a card. I don't think I got a whole lot of yap for you on a Friday. Not today. I mean, I'm sure I could conjure up something. But, eh, whatever. Mostly the main thing on my mind was just kind of, it would have tied into what I said yesterday. Not as much about the discipline part, but just about the trying to jump ahead part, because a lot of people want to just jump right into advanced forms of spirituality and not even worry about the preliminary, the fundamentals, the basics. And that usually you can ask the people who have been down the road how that went for them, and they say, pretty much all of them say, even if it wasn't until 5, 10 years, 15 years in, yep, they got to a point where they realized, oh, I got to just go back and do the stuff I didn't want to do, that I ignored, that I thought wasn't important. Um, the lucky ones, anyway. Other ones, unfortunately, have different varieties of a bad time. But that's really about all I got to say. You could think of it this way. It it works out in like the teaching with analogies thing is pretty helpful. Where say you were gonna step in the ring with like a really trained fighter, and say you maybe are the toughest guy on your block. You know, you've really beat up a lot of people at the bar and at maybe at the park for like a birthday party because you lost your cool. You're a real tough guy. But then you get in the ring with like a actual fighter, and all of a sudden you're not such a great fighter anymore. All of a sudden you're really second guessing your whole life a little bit, potentially anyway, or you just get beat up and then you are still very bitter because I could have took that guy. I should have beat that guy. Or we can think of it in like the terms of substance abuse and how just about everybody will always think to themselves like, oh well, not me, not me. I can do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I won't have a problem. And that's just not usually the case for the vast majority of people. A lot of people end up actually making it into a very big problem and to some degree or another ruining their lives. So just I just really want to drive home the seriousness of all of this for anybody who maybe hasn't already figured that aspect out. And then if I can do that in a few different ways, well then that's what I like in somebody who's offering up their advice, somebody who's already put years into the work and that's what they've got to say about it is the type of things that hey, you might want to not do these things or you might want to go about these things in a certain way. It can be pretty beneficial, huh? Well, anyway, so Nanaval H3K, welcome in, says, "Wow, you look so cool." Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I assume you're talking about by me, you mean this book, since that's really all you can see. And yeah, I do agree that art does look very cool. Hopefully, you're having a great Friday. All right. Well, now that I've hit a little bit of yap, can you double check if the music should be able to? One last aspect of the sound check, real quick, since I am. Yeah, all right, we're good. I figured we'd be good, but we want to make sure. So, anyway, let's do our tarot. Let's see what the cards have for us today. And welcome to those of you just popping in. All right, then. So, Manly P. Hall's Book of Thoth. What would you like us to know before we resume the book, before we get into what you've got to say about Solomon? Good old Solomon, one of the wisest kings that ever lived, they say. What if he's going to tell us that Solomon wasn't even an actual person? Solomon was yet another symbol. And same with his temple. Pretty likely, but we'll find out for sure. All right, cards. Give it to us. Give it to us straight. Let us know the energy for the day. That's probably good. Split it there, and then these cards want to stick together, kind of. Should we just take them both? We'll take that one. We'll take that one. Don't want to overcomplicate things sometimes. Like they say, kiss. Keep it simple. Silly boy. Let's see. What do I see when I touch this card? I see a cup. Oh, I was right. Nice. Queen of Cups. Cool. Okay. So this queen in particular, well, that's her right there. That's the Scarlet Woman. She's got the scepter in her hand. And in her grail, we actually see some flames, three flames to be specific. So is that our three fundamental principles of the universe? Could be. The two grails also upon the pillars, so you kind of see an echo of the high priestess in there. This is the water of water, so this card is straight up water. And for the high flower, what looks to be probably a rose, like a wild rose, it looks like inside of a yoni. So that feminine symbol of the yoni, the same symbol we see in the Christian fish, the I can't think of the name of it, the fish, you know the fish, you've seen it on people's cars, which is we can look at that also as like the eye, the all-seeing eye, the eye of Shiva. So if we're gonna take a let's look at it in the rose in a yoni way. Well, a rose being like the Western lotus, well, that's the crown chakra. And in this time in the more feminine aspect. On the Thoth deck, I'm used to her being she's just in a real watery place. She's like in a meditating in like a in front of there's a watery surface, but it almost seems like she could even maybe be in a cave. Here, though, she doesn't seem to be meditating as much as she seems to potentially even be enchanting this holy grail. So perhaps she, like when you go to the bar and they set the liquor on fire as a cool trick, that's what she's doing before she's about to drink the blood of the saints. So that watery nature, the femininity, the cups, receptivity, our ability to receive, but also we look at it as the subconscious mind. We can even look at it as the emotions on one hand, because that fieriness can also be kind of emotions on another hand. So going into this Friday, I think that would be where it would be wise for us to keep our focus on our ability to receive and our ability to be receptive in a way where we are mastering that emotional state by keeping the crown chakra wide open so that because we also receive the divine wisdom through there, that rose, but that divine wisdom of, as we've already talked about on this channel, just understanding that everything and everyone around you at all times is God. It is the divine. It is the one true great guru. So as you go about your day and as we head into the weekend, understand that if you're always open to the teachings of the guru, they are always there, literally always, right in front of your face. So presence too, as we do that, having the presence is going to be a big part of truly being receptive to the moment, the present moment. Okay, well, that's my reading for us today. Hopefully it hits for you. If not, well, maybe you should do a reading for yourself. Those can be very beneficial. Or even, as I've said, using those cards as a meditation tool, scrying into them even. I don't know how many of you ever sit in the dark room once your goddess, welcome in, says hits for sure. Thank you. Of course. And thank you for being here. I'm glad that it hits for you. So like sitting in your darkened room, having a candle, just the one candle to where that's the little bit of light into the card, and you just stare in that thing, scry into it, even try to enter into it astrally the same way you would do with like the tattvas. Give it a try, see what you see. Perhaps if you were to enter that card just barely, well, it looks like she's in a throne room, but we didn't really see a total background for sure. The way the one pillar on the side was kind of torn down, maybe she's in a like an outdoor temple. And so that's why it looks that way. Maybe you enter in and you realize she's in one of those like six seaside temples like in Greece or something, huh? Find out, give it a test, see what happens. But let's go ahead and hop into our book and see what we're going to learn today about the wise and powerful king, the big S, as they call him. That's what I heard his friends used to call him. They call him the big S. They'd say, "What's up, big S?" And they call him the Saul dog. They say, "What's up, Saul dog?" I got that in a I got that in a meditation session one time. All right, so section 5, Solomon and the everlasting house. Those who have carefully studied the books of the Old Testament realize that a large part of the text is devoted to genealogies and to historical episodes of comparatively little importance. See, so Manley does address some of this after all. He hadn't said it until now, but so see, that's what I think that's one of the ways that some of the Bible experts, the scholars, the students would try to rip this down, saying it's a historical thing and here's the different data to show that, or maybe even the really dogmatic ones that would say, "Oh no, this guy is just ridiculous. None of this means any of this. Come to my church and I'll tell you what it means." Well, let's take it all into consideration, huh? Most of the characters appearing in the Old Testament histories are not preserved in the profane annals of nations. A comparison between the Bible and other sacred books of the world reveals that most of the scriptures contain rambling and pointless pseudo histories. The various commentaries to the Vedas, the most celebrated of the Hindu sacred writings, indicate that certain metaphysical truths are concealed under the so called genealogies. Every Sunday school pupil has struggled with the Beggets. The time expended in memorizing these amounts to little better than waste. If, however, we translate the proper names and interpret the sequences correctly, we can discover many interesting things far beyond the ken of the average Sunday school teacher. The most important commentaries upon the Old Testament are those which have their foundations in the teachings of the Kabbalah. These commentaries reveal the most profound Jewish scholarship. They are enriched with tradition and a certain instinctive grasp of values peculiar to the people and culture. The old rabbis pondered every symbol and every character of the scriptures. They extracted a rare and beautiful metaphysical tradition which, unfortunately, has never found its way into the textbooks of Christendom. This chapter will be largely devoted to the interpretation of the account of the building of Solomon's temple given in the first book of Kings. The story begins with chapter 5 and continues through chapter 9. It is quite generally taught that this is a true historical account of the actual building of a temple fashioned from rock and wood and ornamented with gold and precious stones. If subjected to analysis, however, it becomes apparent, as in the case of Noah's Ark, that we are dealing not with an historical act, but a symbolized fact. It is difficult to determine with accuracy at this late date, the origin of the story of Solomon's temple. It is most probably derived from Egypt, as was the tabernacle in the wilderness. The architecture generally associated with the temple is Babylonian and Chaldean. It is probable that several races and cultures contributed to the symbolism. The story of the building of the temple is briefly as follows. After the death of his father, David, Solomon became king of the territories of Israel. The dearest of Solomon's friends was Hiram, the king of Tyre, with whom Solomon engaged in philosophical discourse. Hiram reminded Solomon that David had desired to build a temple to the ever living God. Hiram further offered his assistance in supplying logs and timber and skilled artisans. It therefore came to pass that in the 480th year after the children of Israel had come out of the land of Egypt, the building of the temple commenced. From the dimensions given in 1 Kings chapter 6, it is evident that Solomon's temple was of no great size. It was not much larger than an average modern home. And it is difficult to imagine that 70,000 men bore burdens and 80,000 hewed wood in mountains, with 3,300 overseers all laboring together for 7 years to build this comparatively modest structure. If a cubit is the distance from the end of the finger to the elbow, about 18 inches, then the length of Solomon's temple was 90 feet. The breadth was 30 feet, and the height 45 feet. Something seems to be wrong in this picture. Various methods of determining the Jewish cubit have been attempted, but in all probability, the dimensions as given are approximately correct. There might be a difference of a few feet. Of course, there were approaches to the temple, houses for the priests, chambers for storing sacred utensils, etc. But still, the discrepancy is wide between truth and popular opinion. The temple was built on Mount Moriah, one of the low hills in the cluster upon which the city of Jerusalem is built. There is still a flat rock called the Rock Moriah jutting from the top of the hill. Today, a Mohammedan mosque occupies the site of Solomon's temple, and nothing remains of the original edifice except a few mutilated stone carvings, which may or may not be genuine. Solomon went to his friend, the king of Tyre, and asked that a clever workman be dispatched to superintend the casting of the vessels of the temple. In 1 Kings chapter 7 verse 13 it says, "And King Solomon sent and fetched Hiram out of Tyre." And then verse 14, he was a widow's son of the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a man of Tyre, a worker of brass, and he was filled with wisdom and understanding. Well, right there's a Kabbalistic hint. And here's a picture, real quick, before we flip the page. Another one of these cool images showing what should be the temple. Looks like the temple here. Let's see. It says Solomon's temple. The upper figure shows the temple with the courtyards. The lower figure shows the temple proper with the porch in front, the inner courtyard, and the G, the Holy of Holies. I think that's a G. I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be a G. Yep, definitely. Okay, so where is that G anyway? Let's see. Is that it? Okay, back in here. Because like he was saying in that last chapter about the three levels and how the Holy of Holies would have been that backmost sacred space. And that's like exactly what that G, when you see the Freemason logo, which Manly was also a Mason, there's that G in the compass. And that G is for God, the big G. So here he has this outer one. So there's the temple, and then there's zoomed in the temple right here. Out here, I'm not sure what all this is supposed to be. But maybe he'll elaborate more on that. And One True Goddess says, that reminds me a lot of Crowley's Four of Pentacles card. Yeah, definitely. Here, I'll pull it out real quick. Which he actually was inspired from some of that Buddhist imagery. So you'll see there's certain Buddhist artworks out there that look like that as well, like right here. Let's see. So there it is. Pretty sure we pulled this one before, but maybe we haven't. I think we did like a while back. Oh, come on, book. Oh, come on, card. Okay. So yeah, definitely. Where here we see the castle, and he made the pentacles actually the towers. He turned them square shaped, and you see the four different elements on it. The fields around it, and the moat. So yeah, that does look quite a, especially that top picture where if the castle is the temple itself, and then you've got the surrounding land. Very good call. Very good call, One True Goddess. Yep, and that boy Crowley, we already know he didn't do anything by accident. Mm-mm. He was very much studied in the Eastern mysticism as well as the Western. All right, let's go ahead and continue. Okay, so he was saying that I'll just reread that little bit from the verse where he said, he was a widow's son of the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a man of Tyre, a worker of brass, and he was filled with wisdom and understanding, and cunning to work all works in brass. And he came to King Solomon and wrought all his work. Da Costa, in his Dionysian Artificers, declared that Hiram of Tyre was an initiate priest of the mysteries of Dionysus, one of the initiated order of architects that flourished in the ancient world and continued down to the architectural collegium at Rome. This is intimated by the Bible statements that he was a man of wisdom and understanding, and a cunning worker in metals. That is, he was an initiate of the mysteries of fire, the only element that will work metals. The story of Hiram, called Our Father Hiram, or Hiram Abiff, is the principal theme of the third degree of Blue Lodge Freemasonry. In fact, Freemasonry traces its original symbology to the three Grand Masters of the Lodge of Jerusalem, that is, Solomon, Hiram of Tyre, and Hiram Abiff. To say that an account in the Bible may have been a symbolical meaning does not necessarily mean that the account is entirely unhistorical. This is evident in the Masonic legend of Hiram Abiff that a cunning workman by the name of Hiram may have lived is not necessarily unreasonable, but it is certain that legends have been built up about the character which belong definitely in the classification of symbolism. Throughout the Bible, we may find mythology and history, fact and fable closely entwined. Certain apocryphal legends spring up around any outstanding personality. The legend indeed may come in time to be more important than the man, when the ages have gently shrouded the truth in forgetfulness and obscurity. Definitely. When we learn that it required 7 years to build Solomon's temple, we know we have discovered a key to the mystery. Seven is the most sacred of the numbers, associated, of course, with creative process, with cosmogony and psychogenesis. In the seventh verse, First Kings chapter 6, it is written, there was neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron had in the house while it was in building. Hmm. Well, take it from somebody who's built houses. You're going to have a hard time building them without those things. This was indeed a temple, built without sound of hammer or voice of workman. It was the everlasting temple, eternal in the heavens. Josephus, the Jewish historian, was aware that the tabernacle in the wilderness was a symbol of the universe. This is also true of Solomon's temple in even more perfect measure. I'll wait. I'm gonna see if he has anything to add about the spirits and Solomon used that everybody's got hyped up about. Before I worry about ranting off about it, digressing into it, we'll see what Manly might have to say about it. The name Solomon may be divided into three syllables: Sol, On. Each of these syllables is the name of a sun god or a divine principle. Sol means sun. Well, actually, soul. I think you could say it either way, soul or Sol. Soul means sun. Om is the sacred syllable of the Vedas, the most magical of all intonations among the Hindus, and On is the name of a supreme being in Persia. The building of the temple was supervised by three men: Solomon of the sun, the source of all life and power; Hiram of Tyre, the earth, who supplied the materials; and a cunning workman, Hiram Abiff, the energies of space, the ethers, the dancing power of Fohat, the law of the atoms. The three grand masters therefore symbolized the three powers which created the world. It requires 7 years to build the temple. That is, 7 periods or cycles are necessary to perfect the earth. The thousands of workers are the forces, energies, and atoms. The masters of the workmen are the laws of life. And the furnished temple, so symbolically small, represents the physical universe itself, comparatively insignificant, but requiring for its creation and preservation the benevolent conspiracies of the innumerable forces that work in space. The creative triad, here represented by the three Grand Masters, is present in all the major theological systems of the world. The Trimurti in the caves of Elephanta in the harbor of Bombay depicts the principal god of the Hindus with 3 faces. These faces represent the creative, preserva- preservative, and disintegrative powers resident in divine energy. The 3 faces of Shiva, as the Trimurti is called in India, symbolizes the triform creative principle of all life. All energy manifests through triads. These triads finally accomplish the building of the soul temple, that is, through the interaction of creative agencies, life is gradually matured, brought to ripening, the ultimate perfection toward which all life is inevitably moving may be said to be the work accomplished by the 3 builders. Nice. That's pretty cool. So that's our Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva with the 2 Hirims and King Solomon. The building of Solomon's temple takes place on several planes simultaneously. The solar system is a product of creative energies. Each of the planets is a house built in space. All the races and lives evolving upon the planets are likewise little temples built to manifest the will of the gods. All forms are houses of the soul. One spiritual principle is building all these houses, functioning through them, finally discarding them for other better houses and forever growing. The realization of this is a mood rather than an intellectual accomplishment. Man is the master builder. Each man is building the temple of his own character. He is building the body through which he must function. He is ennobling his emotions, refining his appetites, and improving his mind. Those who accomplish greatly in these endeavors are indeed master builders. They are building not houses of wood and stone, but temples fashioned without the sound of hammer or the voice of workmen. The whole motion of the universe is toward truth. Truth is growing up in everything, manifesting through all forms and natures. Truth, therefore, may be called the hidden good, the secret God who dwells in the temples that are built for it according to the law. In the story of Solomon's temple, we learn that the holy place and the most holy of holy places were sanctified to the service of the living God. The holy place of man is his mind, and the most holy of holy places is the heart. It is in the heart that the sacrament to consecration must take place. It is in the small room that the whole temple is consecrated. It is in the heart of man that his life is made new. The Dionysian artificers concealed under the symbolism of architecture the secret and spiritual mysteries of the regeneration of man. They were truly divine architects. They were building not houses, but adepts. It says in First Kings that the cedars of Lebanon were cut down and were floated to Joppa to become the beams and the uprights of the everlasting house. The cedars of Lebanon were not trees. There was a holy temple upon Mount Lebanon, as in as in the case of the Druids, whose name means the men of the oak trees. The initiates of Mount Lebanon were called trees or cedars. It was the wisdom of these men that supported the temple. Their knowledge was the beam, and wisdom the upright. Houses that endure are not built by man, for their substance is of the earth, but with the secret substances of wisdom and knowledge that shall endure all vicissitudes of physical existence. Then the Song of Songs That's weird. It seems like there's some type of screw up right there. Yeah, that definitely is, because look. Huh, so this last sentence is some kind of typo. Because it just starts here. This sentence ends, and then here, there's no capital, and then period here. Then it just says the modern. Huh, let's see if maybe on the next page I can make some sense of it. Strange. Okay. Yeah, very weird. Hmm. Well, that's what happens from time to time. Oh, battery low. I better switch them out. Hold on, I'm gonna need to switch back then. I'm gonna need to make sure the sound stays sounding good. So be ready for the echo. Check, check. Test, test. Check, check. Test, test. All right. How's it sounding? Do we love it? Do we hate it? Do we hate it? Test. That was still on the other headphone, so. Test. That was still on the other headphone. Yep, sounds good still. All right then. Well, I guess that's a good time to have a double hiccup, huh? All right. Well, I guess that's a good time to have a double. Oh, and I gotta kill our echo before I resume. All right, no biggie. Okay, so we'll be on to the Song of Solomon. That's strange. That's a strange little screw up in the book there. But I don't know that I'm going to be able to figure it out here and now. So Song of Solomon. No part of the Old Testament is more difficult to interpret than. Oh, maybe I wonder if that's what it is. Ha! I cracked the code, guys. That's what it is. This needs to be down here. No part of the Old Testament is more difficult to interpret than the Song of Songs, which is Solomon. The modern clergy evade this issue. There has even been considerable controversy as to justification for this book being included among the scriptures. No work is more deeply mystical, more profoundly symbolic. It is generally believed that the Song of Solomon was written about 1,000 years before the beginning of the Christian era. Its terms, its symbols, and its figures are strange to the modern world. But for the lover of deep and hidden lore, this brief book is incalculably rich. The alchemists of the Middle Ages declared that the Song of Solomon contained the whole secret of the manufacture of artificial gold. So, alchemy. Its 8 chapters represent the steps in the purification, calcination, and projection of the philosopher's stone. We know that the alchemists were really mystical philosophers who concealed their metaphysics from a cruel and unbelieving world. Gold means soul power. The philosopher's stone is wisdom. Therefore, the secret wisdom and of the perfection of the soul must be concealed in that book, which was anciently called the Canticles. All right then. And a very curious and ancient manuscript relating to the transmutation of metals and other alchemistic and mystical processes. The base metal, which is going to be transmuted into a spiritual stone, is described as in Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5. In the old symbols, the black earth or rebus is always represented as a dark, untinctured mass. The two principles involved in the perfection of stone, that is, the dual forces which are to accomplish the purification of the elements, are described in chapter 2, verse 1. The sublimation begins in chapter 2, verse 4. The alchemical fires by which the elements are to be tested, chapter 2, verse 7, and chapter 4, verse 16. The putrefaction of death before the resurrection of the elements is described in chapter 3, verse 1. The sublimation or distillation of the universal elixir in chapter 3, verse 6, the coagulation and change of color in chapter 6, verse 9 to 13, inclusive. This tells the colors the elements pass through in the making of a stone. The fixation of the crystallization of the stone is described in chapter 2, verse 12 and chapter 8, verse 4. The multiplication of the elements is described in chapter 6, verse 7. The augmentation and final projection of the stone is explained in chapter 8, verse 8, and through to the end of the chapter. And his footnote says, for more detailed interpretation, see page 123 in The Pronaos of the Temple of Wisdom by Franz Hartmann, MD. All right, man. This means that in the work is a formula cleverly concealed, meaningless to the uninitiated, but of great moment to the informed. It is believed that the first verse of the second chapter of the Song of Solomon, I am the rose of Sharon and the lily of the valley. There it is, right there. If the yoni is the valley, the rose slash lily, and oh man, is the origin of the Rosicrucian symbolism of the rose and lily. This verse appears upon many alchemical plates and symbols, but is never interpreted for the profane. The rose and the lily are the symbols of love and wisdom, and these must be well understood before the molten sea of the adept can be cast. So that's another way we can interpret that hieroglyph, is that if that yoni is also a symbol for cups, symbol for receptivity, and the rose being the heart, well, being receptive to the heart, truly the karma yoga thing too, the unattached work for work's sake and love for love's sake and all of that, treating that motherly instinct of treating everyone as if they were your child. In the Song of Solomon, there are two characters, Solomon the king and a mysterious dark princess. We have already explained the meaning of Solomon, how this king symbolizes the sovereign intelligence of the world. He was the wisest of all kings, and his wisdom endured forever. He is the personification of divine power and divine authority. The Black Princess reminds us of the Black Ishtar, the Black Diana of Ephesus, the Black Mylida, the Black Virgin of the early European Christianity. She is the Hidden Mother. The Black Isis, Sophia, Mother of Mysteries. So you could think Binah, but also if he says princess, then that's actually going to be more Malkuth, huh? But let's see what else he's got to say. In substance, she is the mother of the gods to whom Julian the emperor addressed his hymns of praise. The dark mother is called by the Greeks the womb of night, the darkness in the midst of which shines the light power, Solomon in all his glory. The Song of Songs, therefore, is the story of creation. It is a mystical description of the sun and the earth, for the earth is indeed the dark mother. Coatlicue, the dark earth mother of the Aztecs. Maybe so it's Coatlicue. I'm not sure on that. The masters of the Kabbalah examined deeply into the story of Solomon and the dark earth mother. Their findings were in substance as follows. All things manifest themselves from a mysterious obscurity. The origin of life is concealed. The end of life is concealed. The visible world is rounded with the darkness, with origins and ultimates hidden from mortal perception. The Egyptians termed the mysterious veil which hides the superphysical from the physical the veil of Isis. The Alexandrian Hermetists called this veil the thrice deep darkness, for in it are concealed three things: the mystery of life, the mystery of thoughts, and the mystery of feeling. The Babylonians made Ishtar their principal goddess, the daughter of Sin, the god of the moon, the light of the night, the lighter of the night. Yeah, so Sin, the sin that's going to send you to the burning depths of eternity, was actually the name of the moon god of the Babylonians. All this symbolism teaches us that we are to understand in ancient philosophy to the effect that the true source of all things is called the mother, or matrix. From this darkness emerge all living things, progeny of night. So Hesiod calls night the mother of the gods. This night or darkness is infinitely related to light. Day and night follow themselves. The eternal alteration. Day is Solomon, night is the dark goddess. A fine Hindu fable illustrates this. Shia, the sun, pretty sure that's supposed to be a Y, but no, that's got to be Shiva, and that's just a blot of the ink. Yeah, Shiva, the sun, falls in love with Parvati, because that's one of his consorts, so for sure, yeah, it says it here. Okay. The daughter of the Himalaya, the god of the mountains. The sun god Shiva comes to court Parvati when he meets the mountains of the western sky at sunset. For a moment he rides upon the mountain tops, for the great bull, Nandi, is the earth. From the union of Shiva, the sun, and Parvati, the sunset, is born Kali, the goddess of night, worshipped throughout India as the black daughter of the sun. Thus, we see that the black goddess represents not destruction or evil, but merely the dark origin of things. We find this again in the Gnostic systems, where the Virgin Sophia or Wisdom becomes the heroine of strange and curious fables. It was from the Gnostics that the troubadours or wandering musicians of the Middle Ages had their origin. The troubadours were the sweet singers of songs, and they always sang of a mystical and unknown woman, the Virgin of the world. These sonnets soon came to be regarded as merely love songs, but in their origin they were mystical hymns of adoration to the Mother of the world. Dante and Beatrice, the dark woman of Shakespeare's sonnets, are both statements of the same myth, rooted in history, but not significant as history. It is interesting to identify the Queen of Sheba according to the Kabbalistic system. The word Sheba means seven. She is therefore the queen of the seven and represents the spinal fire in the human body. She is Kundalini, the serpent goddess of the seven chakras. The Queen of Sheba comes from Ethiopia, or the land of darkness. She journeys to Jerusalem bearing rich treasures for the everlasting house. In occult anatomy, the land of darkness is at the base of the spine. It is from here that coiled kundalini rises slowly to the brain, awakening the chakras. This ascent is frequently referred to as a journey. In the Bible, it is a visit to Jerusalem. Hmm. There was a typo, I think, in the beginning, because this is longer than what it said it was going to be. Not that it's a big deal, but oh, okay. I was just reading it wrong. I was just reading it like a goof. Well, no big deal. Let's keep it moving. In the Bible, it is a visit to Jerusalem, which means not only the city of peace, but also the city of stacks or heaps, an arcane reference to the convolutions of the brain. The spirit of man is regarded as a luminous principle, perfect in wisdom, origin of the life in man. This spirit descending into dark bodies achieves through the chemistry of experience the mysterious power that is called soul. The virgin of the world is soul. In the universe, the world soul. In man, the human soul. The soul is the dark princess. This we find clearly seated in the book of Revelation, where Jerusalem, adorned as a bride, comes down out of heaven, adorned for her husband. Chapter 21, verse 2. The dark princess is the bride of the Lamb. It is the soul born out of the body, possessing within itself no light, but reflecting the light of spirit. Let us think then in these terms. Man, having perfected his material evolution and having reached that condition of spiritual development in which he becomes aware of his own divine nature, yearns to be united forever with the spiritual truth and reality that are the very substance of himself, the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel. Come on, guys, we didn't forget about that, did we? No way, no way, Jose. The great Sri Ramakrishna taught that the truth of all things was the Great Mother. He thought of God in terms of the mother of all life. When he ended his meditation, he passed into a state of ecstasis. He wrote many books describing his understanding of spiritual reality. His words are not so different from those contained in the Song of Songs, soul crying for the real, the spiritual self reaching down to embrace its lower nature and lift it up into one with itself. This is the mystery of the Song of Songs. The old rabbins knew the secret of the lifting up of self. They realized that this secret had been strangely but beautifully concealed in the Song of Solomon. Sick. All right, well, since we have just a handful more pages to go, I'm going to get some water. Okay, so now Proverbs. The book of Proverbs is attributed to Solomon and should be understood as reflecting the wisdom and culture of Israel at that time. The difficulty we have today is the lamentably bad translations of these scriptural books. All the subtlety of the originals vanished centuries ago, leaving a mass of material still interested but lacking a certain vitality. One example will summarize the entire situation. Chapter 1, verse 7 reads, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge." Now, technically and philosophically speaking, this is untrue. For we are taught to love the Lord our God, and love and fear cannot abide together. So we wonder what might originally have been intended. By examining the oldest traditions available, we learn that this verse says that the sod is for the Chassidim. Now, the word sod has been translated fear of the Lord, but the actual word has no such meaning. Sod means an assemblage. It may mean technically a group of initiated priests, and by rational extension, the doctrines or teachings of such a group in its larger sense. Therefore, sod means the wisdom of the initiate, or the esoteric doctrine. But this does not mean the fear of the Lord. The Chassidim were priests who had been accepted as disciples or initiates into all of the ancient mysteries. This is, then, a restatement of another verse in Psalms chapter 25, verse 14, which says, "The secret of the Lord is with them that fear him." These two verses have identical meaning. Let us therefore say for Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7, the esoteric doctrine is the beginning of wisdom, or the esoteric doctrine is for those who have been accepted into the mysteries. These are indeed the dark sayings referred to in verse 6, the hidden teachings. But what does this mean to the average Bible student? The enthusiastic jot and tittle worshiper will insist that the words of the King James Version are the very words of God Himself. The beginning of blasphemy seems to be to doubt the wisdom of that decrepit group of old men who made the translation. Time and time again, you run against these mistakes. and every statement contained in the Bible should be checked with the Greek or Hebrew originals before any interpretation is derived therefrom. It does not necessarily follow that all of the translations are incorrect. A considerable part of Proverbs is devoted to moral teaching, with special emphasis upon the desirability of wisdom. Solomon, the son of David, exhorts those who would be close to God to achieve wisdom. Of course, in his great day, in his day, great schools and libraries were not available to the people. To him, wisdom was the accumulated knowledge of his tribe, the law and tradition handed down from father to son. See chapter 1, verse 8. Thus, the book of Proverbs is in strange contradiction to the most familiar teachings of modern Christianity. Solomon cries out that man must be wise. He invites those who love truth to incline their ears unto wisdom and apply their hearts to understanding. Yet in the New Testament, the emphasis is entirely upon faith. Solomon says of wisdom that she is more precious than rubies, and all the things that thou canst desire are not to be compared unto her. In chapter 3, verse 15. Solomon also teaches that wisdom is found in ways of godliness. Only the man who seeks God can partake of wisdom. How different this is from our modern viewpoint. The modern scientist has rejected the inferences of religion. Atheism and agnosticism are rampant in the world. Men believe they can be wise without being good, but this can never happen, for wisdom and virtue are inseparably related. There you go. That's the one that's worth repeating right there. Men believe they can be wise without being good, but this can never happen, for wisdom and virtue are inseparably related. If modern thinkers would realize that deepness of understanding requires a spiritual perspective, we would have less of war and struggle and conflict and more of the peace and security which are described in the book of Proverbs. What is wisdom? Wisdom is knowledge perfected through inward realization. Wisdom comes not out of books, nor does truth come out of books. Understanding and wisdom come from within man. They sanctify knowledge, they transmute and perfect education, they spiritualize thought and culture. And that's exactly why I keep saying do the rituals. Don't just listen to 9,000 things a month about all this stuff. Actually, do the rituals. And part of that, a big part of that, is meditation and contemplation. So there's different types of meditation, but one that you should certainly be doing is contemplation. And that's the main reason I get worried about maybe throwing too much in your lap over on this channel, is because if you're not even getting enough time to really contemplate the information you're getting, and especially when all of us are just scrolling from one thing to the next to the next to the next, just goldfish style, 8 second attention span. Well, then you're not actually digesting this in the way you should be. You're not actually sitting with all this the way you should be. I'm sure, like I know that there definitely are some of you who are, but I think for the most part, that's what I see going on out here, and what I've even encountered with people I know personally. Swami V said the same thing. They all see, that's what I'm saying. All the best teachers say the same type of stuff. Well, I wonder why. Is it because they're all just ripping each other off, or is it because they all actually did the stuff and figured it out? Why was Plato a wise man, while some modern thinker is only educated? The modern man may possess far more actual technical knowledge. He may not suffer from Aristotle's inability to number correctly the teeth in the human head. Yet the man who can number the teeth and split the atom may be an ignorant man, while some Indian sage seated under a banyan tree with none of this world's goods and no schooling may be a truly great man. If education could bestow wisdom, we would all be wise. But instead of this, we are foolish, filled with prejudices and conceits, incapable of even friendliness and honesty. It is therefore appropriate to meditate upon wisdom, even as Solomon meditated upon it. Wisdom is the most precious thing in the world. It bestows absolute security. It makes man one with the sovereign truth which sustains the universe. Plato was wise because he transmuted knowledge into soul power. This great man, gentle and patient, too wise to be angry, too learned to be unjust, is a magnificent example of the breadth and depth true wisdom bestows. A comparison between a modern scientist and Plato would be most humiliating for the modern scientist. He may know more, but he understands so little of what he knows. He has convinced himself that there is neither God nor reason in the universe. Therefore, there is no truth, no wisdom within himself. Plato saw God in everything and communed with truth. The modern scientist sees God in nothing and may commune only with his confreres obsessed with similar unbelief. Confreres, I think is what it's supposed to be with his confreres. Same difference. Potato, potato. Solomon tells us something else in the Proverbs. He tells us that it is impossible to be wise without living in harmony with the divine plan. Only the soul that is gentle and filled with the love of truth is capable of great learning, and no man can learn more than he himself is. Increase of knowledge infers increase of spiritual stature. As we grow in integrity, we become capable of greater knowledge. There you go. There you go. That paragraph right there. Contemplate on that quite a bit. Quite a bit. Let's run it back one more time. Solomon tells us something else in the Proverbs. He tells us that it is impossible to be wise without living in harmony with the divine plan. So just like Swami V said too, about what takes you Godward, what takes you farther away from God, what really is good and evil. That's exactly what's being said right here. Only the soul that is gentle and filled with the love of truth is capable of great learning, and no man can learn more than he himself is. Increase of knowledge infers increase of spiritual stature. As we grow in integrity, we become capable of greater knowledge. In another place, Proverbs chapter 9, verse 1, Solomon writes, Wisdom hath builded her house. She hath hewn out her seven pillars. That actually, let me say something too. For anybody who's done Enochian and scribed the Enochian ethers, that last sentence especially, I don't got to tell you, as we grow in integrity, we become capable of greater knowledge. And what are the seven pillars of wisdom? They are the seven laws which sustain the universe. They are the seven aspects of the real. Wisdom hath builded her house, and her house is the universe. That power which builded it has the wisdom to sustain it. Man, immersed in wisdom, is still foolish, surrounded everywhere by the evidences of truth. He is still ignorant and perverse. In the presence of the mystery of life, he lives not at all. Proverbs also tells us that the wicked man cannot flourish. In chapter 11, verse 5 reads, The righteousness of the perfect shall direct his way, but the wicked shall fall by his own wickedness. The whole world desires to be happy. It desires security and peace. It longs for green pastures. But happiness must be earned. The stupid, the foolish, and the selfish can never be happy. Any man who departs from wisdom departs from peace. Any man who clings to the evils in him must suffer for his decision. It appears in this world that the evil flourish, but if we examine closely into their lives, we shall see sorrow, misery, sickness, and death. The law forbids that any man who is not intrinsically good shall enjoy either wisdom or peace. Although the Proverbs are attributed to Solomon, no man knows for certain by whom they were written. But whoever he was, the author of these verses was indeed a wise man. He was a master of the mysteries of life, an adept of secret schools. In chapter 12, verse 28, he says, In the way of righteousness is life, and in the pathway thereof there is no death. This is indeed the teaching of the mysteries of the sacred temples of Eleusis and Sais. Maybe it's Sais. I don't know that one. Immortality is the reward of wisdom, not immortality in the sense of the perpetuation of the physical body with its infirmities, but rather a conscious participation in eternal life. The wise man perceives the law, obeys it, and his inner life is perfected. Our modern dictators might profit by the verse. Better it is to be of an humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the spoil with the proud. Man lives a little time in this world and departs into the unknown from whence he came. This life is indeed an antechamber of eternity. How little we appreciate the impermanence of our physical existence. How seldom we look beyond this life, perceiving only this physical existence. We live wholly for the day, ignoring and refusing to consider our eternal existence. That's what Thomas à Kempis kept saying over and over again, too. And that's one of the things where he was even like, you'll hear a lot of the Swamis say about being present, being in the present moments, but he even was saying, screw that. Because what he was really saying was the eternal. That's what you should be really having your sights set on, the eternal. But, the more advanced practitioner will realize that the present moment and the eternal start to become one and the same. But time brings to all things the rewards of action. Each person in the end comes to that which is his own. We may regret the seeming injustice of life, but there is a mighty honesty in space, and all men and their deeds shall finally come to their just deserts. The student of the Christian Bible will do very well to consider the sacred books of other nations. It is also important for the biblical student to have the religious literature of the world ever available to him. He soon realizes from the study of comparative religion that the scriptures of various peoples have a common origin and a common purpose. Not one of the scriptural books is complete in itself. Each is derived from the writings and customs of several racial doctrines. Religious intolerance must be overcome by all sincere truth seekers. The age of bigotry has passed. Evolving humanity demands and deserves a more tolerant religious perspective. We like to feel that sincere students have outgrown an intolerant addiction to any sect or creed. It is impossible for man to function normally without some spiritual guidance. The present international chaos is due to the failure of idealism in the affairs of men. This failure is due, at least in part, to religion itself, that is, what we call religion. It is due to the intolerance of sects and to innumerable superstitions that have been foisted upon a gullible humanity. The commercialism of religion, greatly to be deplored, is inevitable under existing world conditions. To the average Christian, the Old Testament is a book of history, bad and garbled, a history ridden with ignorance and cruelty. But so are the Vedas of India, the Quran of Muhammad, the Zendavesta of the Persians. The greatest of the Indian classics, the Bhagavad Gita, is the story of a war of brothers. Krishna comes to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The wars of scripture, the massacres, and the captivities are all symbolical. They all represent the great battle of life itself. In the Nordic myths, we have the battle between the gods and demons on the plains of Asgard that ended finally in the destruction of the world. It seems incredible to an intelligent person that any sane man or woman could have accepted literally the spiritual significance of the Old Testament's war and carnage. Yet millions of people today live by the jot and tittle of such literalism. This the sincere student must definitely avoid. He must search for the divine mystery in all things, and discovering the true keys to the scriptures, must apply them not only to the book, but to the mystical art of living itself. Whew. He ended that one on a couple of swings of the fist. Jeez. That's what I'm saying. But they don't want to hear it. All right, so section 5 is complete. Yeah, a little bit longer than I first was looking at, but I was just reading the dang thing wrong. So my bad, but really it ain't that big of a deal. We're still within our usual time frame. So hopefully you enjoyed that one as much as I did. That one was fire. Wow, that one was good. And yeah, he didn't end up talking about the spirits used to Solomon's temple, but the things he did say still give clues to all of that. How I don't know if I want to go into it all right now. You know, there is the shadow work idea on the one hand, but also it's just too many people are just getting caught up in the nonsense. But I guess if that's their karma, then that's their karma. What am I gonna do about it? Nothing. I'm gonna go finish drinking my Dr. Pepper, nice and delicious. I'm gonna go out and enjoy some more of this nice day and try to apply these teachings into my life. Contemplate on them some more. Please take that contemplation serious. Please take meditation seriously. You should at the very least always be meditating. But I don't really have much else to say. Um, Much love to you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your interest, your shared interest and your contributions. One True Goddess, thank you, and much love. I will see you tomorrow for Section 6, Nebuchadnezzar's Dream. Bye bye.